Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Hope-Filled Fiction blog this week. And it's a special day for me because I have one of my 1129 Scribe critique partners with me today, Cathy Rueter. Hi, Cathy. Hey, I'm glad to have you here, and I'm excited about just chatting about your writing and about your debut novel that's going to be launched here pretty soon. So we're going to kick it off with you just introducing yourself and telling everybody a little bit about you and your family.
Okay, well, thanks for having me here, Dina. I appreciate it. I am Cathy Rueter, as Dina said, and I am the writer of Christian murder mysteries. Um, I do two different kinds. The first ones are novelettes, and those are mini mysteries that are wrapped around the bigger picture of the novels. And I'm very blessed that my publisher, Elk Lake Publishing, is allowing me to do the novelettes on my own because it adds to the characters in the big novels by characterizing and bringing other little ones
Mhm.
to the forefront. I have a huge, weird, eclectic background in what I do. I'm a creative, and if it's creative, I'm probably have done it or am doing it, and that comes through in my writing because I write about Jennifer Clark, who is she's a fashion designer, and I used to design bridal accessories, so that comes through. I've done shows, fashion runway shows before, that comes through. But as far as my own self, you can probably hear my Midwestern accent. I am from originally born in Illinois, but was raised mostly in Michigan. And then a little over a decade ago, my husband and our two boys and I moved to Texas. So I still get, "You're not from around here, are you?" But we love it here. So I jokingly call myself a Texagander gal because my heart's there, but my roots are there, and my shoots are here. So
Yeah.
we're working on that.
Yeah, so you're not too far from Dallas. So our some people know our oldest daughter lives in Dallas, and so
Right.
it was last year when I visited, we got to get together.
That was so fun.
Yeah, with us and Paula, another one of our critique partners, and have lunch together, which is kind of cool.
It
So
was.
yeah, all three of my critique partners, they all live in Texas, and I'm the only like way out here on the East Coast. So it's nice to get together occasionally.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you started writing and when that came about.
Well, I started when I was a kid. I have found poems and little stories that I wrote, but I never wanted to be a writer. Um, but I just kind of dabbled in it here and there because it was creative. So to me, that was in my wheelhouse. I have a really, really bad article that I did for a high school, for the local newspaper when I was in high school. And I have other little things as I grew as a creative in the fashion industry. Uh, Articles for weddings, newspapers, and things, but I never really honed in on it until my husband and I moved to Missouri for 4 years. Our oldest son was 7 months old at the time, and we had one car. And to be able to use the car for errands or going and visiting anybody, which we didn't know anybody anyhow, um, it was having to get the baby up, taking dad to work at really early in the morning o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and having to pick him up at night, which
Mm-hmm.
was very late because he worked long, long
Yes,
hours.
been
That
there,
got
done
old.
that.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of moms and dads have, but it got real old real quick. So a lot of the times I just said, "You take the car, we'll stay here." And I started with a group called Long Ridge Writers Group. I think they're still available. I don't know, but it was more of a give and take, and it was just as things were coming online. So this was 30 years ago,
Okay.
and it wasn't as easy. Even my book work, I had to send into them. So, but at the time I thought, okay, well, this will keep me busy. And I started into a little bit of writing. But then once we started, the boys grew up and didn't need me as much. It's like, what do I want to do? By that time, I had been a journalist for a newspaper for a couple of years, had been an editor for a school district newsletter for quite a while, and my own stuff. So at that time, I'm like, okay, I'm a writer. I'm not an author, but I'm a writer. And just to make this little tiny plug for myself, I go by Cathy Rueter writer because Cathy Rueter author doesn't sound quite as, jingly. But I ended up with deciding I think I want to write about, I don't know what I want to write about, but I just started writing. And the beginning of what is now Murder May I came out of that time, but it took me because we moved many, many times in between. It's been 13 years. Mm-hmm. So anybody who gets upset that they haven't written a book fully in 1 or 2 years, don't worry about it. It'll get there. Yep. But it was one of those things where I lost the first chapter, which I found out later. Through one of our moves, we found a box that had been shoved back away. It happened to be in there. And it's a really good thing I lost it because it wasn't very good. And the main character there wasn't very likable. And her twins are in the book, and anybody who reads it will I think fall in love with them, because that's what everybody has said. They have fallen in love with the twins. But it was almost like, if these twins are so wonderful, how could they have this rotten mother? And so she has changed, thankfully. But from there, it kind of snowballed into Murder May I. I will be having a full total series eventually. I'm contracted with Elk Lake for 3 novels right now, plus my little side ones. And I'm just seeing where God takes me with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've been at this for a while.
Yes.
What would you tell your younger writing self that you've learned at this point that you didn't know then?
Yeah. Well, for one, it's going to probably take longer than you ever thought. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your research. Be patient with critique partners. And I strongly recommend getting a critique group, because they're your first line of defense. But if those ones don't work, try others. Mm-hmm. I have been in, I think, 5 different groups, and our little group of 4 women, we're so diverse, and we have diverse backgrounds. We have diverse growing ups and ages, and growing ups, is that a word?
It is now.
There we go. Anyhow, we're really diverse, and you guys catch me on things that I mean, even just reading it aloud like we do every week when we meet, I catch things as I'm reading that I've gone over 15 times and still go, oh, can't believe I didn't catch that. But then you guys see things because you're reading it with fresh eyes. I'm reading it from what I know should be there. And those critique partners are that first line of defense, and it helps polish. So be patient, like I said, with yourself, with your research and everything, because it's my firm belief that God is going to put it where it needs to be, when it needs to be. And he may not be ready for the research you need to be shown to you, or the person that you need to talk to. Maybe you haven't moved next to them yet. I actually moved to a place for 4 years, and I was stuck on my writing at the time, and ended up meeting just out in the neighborhood a woman who was the mom of an autistic child, who I have one of the twins is autistic. And I also met a person who was a photographer and happened to end up she was training to be a forensic photographer, which helped me immensely in some of my articles. If I had done this book before meeting them, it wouldn't be as good as it is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the right timing, right?
right timing and to be patient.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
that's a big thing. Be patient, especially with yourself and your learning.
Hmm. So, my next question, I think you've kind of touched on a little bit, is about hobbies and if you've incorporated them into your books. Now, I know a lot of your stuff has been your job, your career, not necessarily hobby, but when you're very creative the way you are, I'm sure you have some creative things, hobbies that end up in your books.
Yes, yes. So in the back of this book, and I won't give it away, there's a little story that I'm adding in about designing a wedding dress for a very special person and something that happened with that dress along the way. So sewing is a big thing. I love to sew. But other things that end up in here are thrifting. Love to thrift. Um, I like to, let's see, what are some of the other things? Ree is one of the twins. Her name's January, but she goes by Ree. And she is turning out to be very creative. And I already have some plans for some things down the way that her and her caretaker are going to be doing together because it's stuff I love. So I can write about it and I understand. Because they always say, write about what you know. Well, I don't know about killing people. I'll promise you that.
That's a good thing.
But I do know things about being creative and needing that creative outlet to pour back into my writing. She's going to need that eventually as well. And I already have that planned in. So, yeah, it's fun to be able to take some of my things I've learned. It's fun to take some of people I know have taught me, and I can put little bits and pieces of them in. And I know that they're in there. Hopefully, they won't see themselves unless I want them to.
Yes. So let's talk about that novel. It's your debut and it's called Murder May I.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about the setting and if it's a real or fictional place, how you came up.
Okay. The setting is Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, and I live right between them. And we are really drawn to Fort Worth area, but this book decided it needed to be in Dallas because there is two bridges that I mention in here, and we call them the Margarets. They're both named after one is Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge, and the other one is Margaret. Can't remember the second one, but we call them the Margarets, and I love those bridges. Those have ended up in here, so it's between that and the Dallas Fashion District needing to be right down the road where she can walk to it. Everything had to be in Dallas. So Dallas and parts of Fort Worth are in here, and even Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I'm from,
Mhm.
ends up being there. So yes, some of the setting is real, but some of it's fiction too, because the let's see, the Wells Myers Art Institute, that is not real. I wish it was because it sounds wonderful, but it's actually an Easter egg. It's a little gift for my
Mhm.
readers, which will end up being on my website eventually. I'm going to have a list of Easter eggs in each one of the books.
Mhm.
That's not real. The place, it's called Lilac Lane Fashion House, which I love lilacs, so it had to be there because I can't get lilacs down here in down here in Texas. So
Mhm.
that's my way to get my lilacs.
Yeah.
That's fictional. And where her house is, and she mentioned several times that she can see the bridges, there is no way there's an apartment where she could see those bridges.
Yeah.
But, creative license.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that too, like the couple of novels that I've written are set in real places, but then there's a lot of fictional places, that you bring into it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is this story, Murder May I, inspired by any true events in your life or personal history?
Uh,
Hopefully not the murder part.
yeah, especially not the murder part. Um, well, let's see. I You'll have to forgive me. I do write
Okay.
things down because I get nervous when I'm being interviewed,
Fine.
and
Totally
I
fine.
so
Well, it sounds like you did bring in some of your history with Michigan because, right? Because growing up
yes,
there, you brought some of that in.
yeah, I did. And again, here is it inspired by true events or personal history? It's both. because, like we've already talked about, I've never murdered anyone, I promise. But I have ran a fashion show. I've never ran a whole fashion house, but I've ran a fashion show. I've emceed. I have been in them. My I finished my Bachelor of Fine Arts with Grand Valley State College. It is now a university, but back then it was college. And then went on to doing fashion merchandising. And with that, at Grand Rapids Community College, that is where my fashion stuff really ramped up, and I had to design things. So all of that is real, but each character also has a little bit of me. Even the bad guys, some of my not so nice qualities have ended up in the bad guys. Some of my good qualities and maybe some of my bad qualities have ended up in the good guys, but it's because if they were all good,
Mhm.
you know, they wouldn't be
It'd
real.
it'd be boring, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I like the fact that a certain habit or a little bit of their appearance or just things I love, like you can't tell today, but my hair is stick straight. I love curly hair. A lot of my characters tend to have curly hair. So things that I wish for
Uh-huh.
are in there.
Yes.
Things and surprisingly, I didn't plan on this. I'm sure God did when he decided that I was going to be writing this. But I learned stuff along the way that I didn't know I needed to learn until it was like, oh, well, I don't know how that got there on paper, but it's
Mm,
there. And I think that was meant for me specifically.
mm. That's one of the joys of writing,
It is.
the process of going through and saying, wow. Like I remember reading back a scene that I had written and just started crying because it ministered to me so much in that
Yeah.
moment of something I was going through, but I had written it, you know, however, I wrote that book some years ago now. But yeah, it's funny how God will just do that for us at times and use the words that he gives us to put on the page to just speak to us.
It is. This is a little bit off of your question of whether it was inspired by true events, but I used to be a community journalist and I worked for a person who, let's say he wasn't my favorite person on the earth. And we did not know if he would change any of our words until it came out in print every Tuesday.
Gosh.
And there were times when people were like, I can't believe you wrote that. I didn't. Those
Mm,
weren't my words. And it
mm,
got to the point where I got really frustrated and I had to have 5 to 7 articles out per week. And one week I was so depleted. Being a mom of growing boys and a wife and daughter and everything that comes with all of life. And then to have this job where I was dreading every Tuesday to see what had been changed and hoping not much.
mm.
Um, I was completely depleted. And I sat down and I'm like, God, I don't know where to go with this. I just don't. And started, doing the whole crying and everything. And after my little pity party and prayer time with him, it was that week specifically, but it's happened multiple times since. It was like, I do not remember writing. I just sat and I wrote, got everything together, all these little pieces and parts and puzzle pieces came together. And miraculously, my quota ended up in the paper, not changed. And even the ones that did get changed later, people started coming up to me and going, that wasn't you. I could tell that wasn't your writing.
Mm,
So since then, I don't always remember to, but I do try to sit down and pray beforehand that his words come through me. And so many times, the really good stuff, I don't remember writing. I
mm,
honestly don't.
mm.
But then I read them back and I'm like, ooh, that's kind of cool.
That's really good. Did I really write that?
Yeah, and you did because it's on your computer on your pieces of paper and
Yeah.
but it's a I really consider it a blessing that those words end up there because I know they need to be ministering to someone, but I don't have the background or the words or whatever is needed to minister. So
Right.
I'm glad I'm just that conduit
Mm-hmm.
that can do
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about the characters in your book and how you selected their names. I know that naming characters is big for you. So
Yes,
talk
yes,
about
it
that for a
is.
second.
Okay, so a few of the characters' names, I've had people go, oh, names just pop in my lap. That's really cool, and I'm glad for you. And it actually has happened to me. Some have just appeared in my head. Jen has always been Jennifer Clark. In my research, though, I found out that Clark with an E on the end of it, I don't remember what it pertains to right now, but Clark without the E on the end of it is a form, at one time at least, a form of a scribe, which is writing. And I thought, how cool is that? So that was a little gift to myself. I just took off that
Mm-hmm.
E.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she was, she came to be easy. Let's see, some of them I want to be Easter eggs for
Mm-hmm.
people who read this, and they'll get, I know that one. And one of the characters that is down the road, I actually ran a little tiny contest. I have a small group that prays for me for my writing. And I went to them and I said, okay, I'm having a hard time with this character. What are of these ones do you like? And they helped me pick it out. And then I had to go back. And one of the things I do, I give a presentation about naming characters. And one of the things I recommend very highly is trying to find out if there's somebody named that, because especially like a bad guy, you don't want to give that person any inkling that you are referring to them because they have the same name as your bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a person that was named this, and I don't know if it's a nickname or whatever, because it's not a usual name. Um, but I tried to get a hold of them, tried to document the fact that I had tried. I've never heard anything back. So I'll probably be okay with that one. But it's one of those things where there's so much more to naming characters. You have to worry about the defamation, and people are like, oh, it's just something I made up out of my head. No, there's actually things where naming of people is very personal, and they take it very personal. Other things that I've done into digging with the history is, you'll have to excuse me really quick. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right because this is so important to me. Like Ree, she's the goddaughter of Jen, and her name was not easy. It was one of my hardest ones. Her real name is January, but everybody kept tripping over Jen and January or Jan or Janny. So she's been Janny, she's been JJ, she's been all kinds. And finally, it's like, well, she's got this not little brother, they're twins. She's got this brother who makes these funny little words from whatever is in his head. And he often will go January when he's mad at her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there it is. It's changed from that J, which was confusing everybody, to an R sound.
Mm-hmm.
But I highly recommend keeping a list of names that you're using, because especially if it turns into a series, you might not think it's going to, but I didn't think this was going to be a series at first.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend keeping a list, because after a while I was like, oh, you've got the same initials in like 6 different characters. That's not going to work.
Yep. Even my real live kids, one of my daughters and my son, one is Jenna Danielle and he's Jeremy Daniel. So they have the same initial.
Oh.
And they're like, Mom, why did you do that? Like,
well,
we can't even put our initials down on something and know which one it is. Like,
actually, my husband's family has a tradition with naming their generations a specific way, and we followed it, and both of our boys have the exact same initials.
Okay, so I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
Nope.
All right, we have just 1 or 2 minutes left here. So as we wrap this up, tell us, why would somebody want to read Murder May I? Like, what are they going to take away from it? What is the one thing you really hope when they get to the end and they close the book and say, wow, this, what are they taking away from it?
Um, I hope that they're going to take away the same thing that Jen learns in the book, that even people like me and her, because she is a lot of me, uh, we're kind of control freaks, mainly because things need to go a certain way so that life doesn't get too unexpected. Life is going to throw unexpected things at you all the time. And when we feel out of control, we start spiraling. Jen finally figures out that she doesn't have to be in control of everything. And she's not in
Mm.
control of everything.
Yes, exactly.
And we are not. That God is in control of even the stuff that is caused by other people's poor decisions, bad reactions, their free will causing havoc on our life. God can still take that and make it into a nugget of goodness. Somehow, some way, it might not be immediate. You might have to go through some rough stuff to
Mhm.
get there. But he is in control and we can lean on him. And that's what I'm hoping people will take away. And also, there the huge characteristic or a huge part of this book is masks. And I used to admire and actually be a little bit jealous of people who would say, what you see is what you get. And I'm like, why can't I be like that? And I realized I am so many different things. What you see is what I'm able and willing to show that day.
Mhm.
And what I'm able and willing to show that day comes from how I'm feeling, what situation I'm in, what people I'm by, who I'm comfortable with, because I'm really awkward in some situations. So I hope that people can know it's okay to have those different masks. It's okay to admire people who are different than you, but you don't have to be them.
Mhm.
So that's what I
Yeah,
hope they'll take away
that's
from.
that's great. That's a great lesson for all of us. I'm a control freak too. So, and I've learned as well, I'm not in control. So I know you mentioned you have a 3-book contract. So I like to end on this note that what's next from you is more of the series and anything else beyond that.
Yep, I am working on another Christmas novella. So the first in the little novellas that revolve around this was last Christmas. I'm working on another Christmas novella, and I'm hoping to have one out each year. We'll see if that actually happens. I am currently writing book number 2, and I don't give out my names other than to my critique partners, just because it gets buried in people's heads and then sometimes comes out in their own writing, and I don't want to find
Mm,
my titles coming out with somebody else's work on them.
hmm.
I'm writing number 2. This will eventually be a 6 series book with a 7th one, if everything goes as I hope, that all the little side stories will be put into a last 7th book so that people could read the whole thing if they wanted to.
Hmm.
That's a long ways down the road, though. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping this one doesn't take 13 years to write.
Yes, I don't think it will. I think you're on a roll and you got it going on.
We're working on it. And I do have the second in the series of the little novellas, which is actually coming out this week. It might not be online until next week, but that one is called Scaring Miss Muffet Away. And it is the prequel to Murder May I. All of these are pretty much standalones. The novels and the novelettes are standalone, but I have been told that it helps answer a couple little questions, and they like the extra little character stories. So we'll
Hmm.
see.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks, Cathy, for chatting today. And I'm really excited for you and your launch coming up soon. Do you know the exact date of the launch? I mean, it's in end of May, which is when this interview will post.
Um, we've had a couple little issues here, so it's either going to be the end of May, beginning of June for the
Okay.
actual being on, out in public.
Okay.
My I'm really excited because I'm going to be up in Michigan at one of my absolute favorite bookstores in July. That's Baker Book House in July on 17th is when I'm scheduled for that. And, God willing, we hope
Mhm.
everything goes that way. And we'll just, I'm taking it one day at a time.
Yep. And you're not in
And
control.
exactly, exactly.
All right. Well, it's been
So
fun. It's been
thank
fun
you. I
chatting.
appreciate being
And
here.
yeah, I'm excited for the giveaway and seeing who is going to win that. So make sure you comment, people, so you can get in that
Please do, and
giveaway.
I'll answer you back.
All right. Thanks, Cathy.
Thanks, Tina.